Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub here to answer your burning questions. It's me, it's Christopher, and it's Patrick Van Straten. The first one was sent in by Aeon Anawa. They say, which player is wasting away on the bench, and if they should move, where? So who is being wasted at their current club is the simple definition of that question. Who's got an answer?
Back-to-back negative titles.
Yeah, we got a bit of a panic for the
it.
flop one.
Yeah.
People in the comments were like, how are you saying a flop after 8 games? Well, at the very start of that episode, we also said we're changing the question to who's disappointed us at the start. So just relax in the comments. I know people can get a bit uppity. So this one, who's being wasted at their club right now in this moment?
Still did over 100k as well that episode. So we go again. I'm going to lead the charge with Phil Foden because yesterday I read a stat that he is 196th in terms of minutes generated, minutes picked up for a player of his age, which is nearly 20. He's 19 and 200 days. And when you look at that list, players that went on to have elite careers have tended to be at the very top. You're looking at Ryan Giggs, Joe Cole, Rio Ferdinand. Rooney, I think, was pretty much top. Although Cristiano Ronaldo, 53rd.
Fabregas.
If I remember correctly, Fabregas.
But then I guess he joined, was up there, bed in, didn't he?
But very few people find themselves in the situation that Phil Foden is currently in, where he's in one of the best teams for his club of all time, under one of the best managers of all time, behind some pretty seminal players in their position. In David Silva, in De Bruyne, in Bernardo Silva, whose numbers have really shot up this campaign. So I think most reasonable football fans would be like, okay, he's going to start next year. David Silva's going to, where is it, LA, Miami?
I think he's going Miami International on the BB7, baby.
So he's going to go to America, and you'd imagine that Phil Foden will pick up the majority of those minutes because City have started with David Silva an awful lot this campaign, haven't they? Whether it be that 4-3-3 that kind of morphs to a 4-2-4. I think David Silva's actually been better in that 4-3-3 or that 4-2-3-1 with Rodri and potentially Gundogan at the base of midfield with Fernandinho kind of filling in at centre-half. So you'd imagine when he leaves, Phil Foden's going to come straight in. But you could also forgive Phil Foden for thinking Jadon Sancho, 66 appearances for Dortmund, over an assist or a goal in over half of those games. Whereas
I think he's got like 35 and 43
it's
now.
crazy. And I think there's only 2 months between them.
Yeah.
So very hard for him not to weigh his career against Jadon Sancho's at the moment, who's worth over 100 million, who's got a bumper new deal, who's going to be in the international setup, so on and so forth. I think Phil Foden's got a very respectable 9 goals in 39 starts. Or maybe that's just appearances, not even starts. I mean, his only start this season has been against Preston in the EFL when he's had a minute against Liverpool, 5 minutes in the Champions League where he went on to get a goal. And his numbers really impressive this campaign. And they were at that stage last campaign where he probably warranted more starts. So only 330 minutes. I've got down here 3.8 shots, 2.2 key passes, 2.2 dribbles, and an expected goals and assist value of 0.95. They're normally the sort of figures that if you're putting them up in limited minutes, you're knocking on the door. I think he's been very patient. I think he'd probably add to City's team. That's the thing. Have City been, when they've started Silva and Gundogan in the same side, have they been as good as they have been prior? Or is there cause for him starting in this side right now? What do you boys think?
Well, it depends. What you've listed there, those are all attacking stats, and their attack is the best it's ever been. Their attack is absolutely wild at the moment.
But David Silva's numbers are quite down though, mate.
I'd happily take David Silva out, given that it's a much better investment to give the minutes to Foden, and their attack could stand to come down a bit. But really what they need to be thinking about right now is how they get more defensive solidity, because they're super easy to counter-attack in the middle. Like every side, Bournemouth got beaten by them early in the season. Bournemouth put up like 1.6 expected goals against them.
Yeah.
I looked this up the other day, and I think they've conceded over 1.5 expected goals in like 4 of their games so far this season. I think they did it once or twice in the whole of last season. So if Foden's going to defend more than those guys, by all means get him in. But those numbers are in exceptionally limited minutes, and it does seem like he kind of wants to be an attacking midfielder. So I think that you've got to think about like what you do to strengthen the defensive spine of this team, because Foden isn't going to be an improvement in attack on any of the players they've got in there. But if he can do some of the attacking stuff while giving them a bit more solidity, that's definitely something they should be looking at.
But I don't think you lose any solidity with David Silva coming out of the side. He doesn't put up huge defensive numbers.
This is what I'm saying though, but they might not gain any either. Like they need to gain solidity as opposed to just not lose it because they have no solidity currently.
So you think the centre-half issue might cost them right now? I mean, Rodri's still there, Gundogan's still there. That is a double pivot which should be guarding their back four adequately. But it's individual errors in the back four that's costing them those expected goals at the minute, isn't it? Like Otamendi being an absolute Argentinian mop.
They're facing so much more pressure through the middle though. Like I think the issue does start in defensive midfield. Like I think Rodri's been good, but he's not Fernandinho right now. Fernandinho is much better at sniffing out danger and heading it off early, particularly high up the pitch. And Gundogan actually during his time at Man City has played a much more attacking role than he did in his early days at Dortmund, right? Like if you look at his numbers, he looks much more like a sort of attacking midfielder than he looks like a central midfielder. So I understand why he's in there because they're a little bit thin and they kind of want some experience there in the middle of the park. But I do think that the defensive issues clearly start in the middle, and then the back line is just not good enough to make up for those problems.
They used to bring those full-backs into the middle, right? So Fabian Delph used to offer that defensive solidity they were talking about at the minute, which might cost Foden minutes. Cancelo, of course, started his first Premier League game last week, wasn't great on the left-hand side. They ended up bringing Zinchenko on and they put up some more shots in the second half. Kyle Walker at right back has been ill recently, hasn't he? Had a stomach virus, so that's
struggling.
That's not been great for them down the right-hand side. So do you think, as well as them being a little bit softer down the centre, they're lacking a little bit of cohesion at fullback, wherein none are tucking in, none are providing Rodri with that defensive support when Gundogan does go on those runs or does go beyond this man, or when Kevin De Bruyne turns that midfield into a 4-2-4? Is it not just the centre-halves? Is it the whole makeup of the back four?
They're just too easy to counter-attack, and I don't know whether that is because the fullbacks are pushing too high up the pitch. I haven't watched enough Manchester City to give an honest answer on it, but from the evidence that I saw against Wolves, it felt like they were way too easy to counter against. Yeah. Especially, look, we all know Otamendi's faults, and it is diving in and going to floor way too easily, particularly for, I think it was Traore's first, was it, when Jimenez nips between his legs. But when he's getting countered and it's him and, was it Fernandinho next to him?
Yeah.
It's those two versus Jimenez and Traore. It's got to be really good defending to stop that situation, given Adama Traore in a one-on-one.
Defending in the open field is incredibly difficult.
You are going to lose in a one-on-one against Adama Traore.
There's a reason that you try and avoid your centre-backs being squared up one-on-one with an attacker all the time. And that's why pressing teams almost always give up really high-quality chances. They tend to give up few shots, but the shots they give up are really good quality. So Man City are currently giving up the highest quality chances in the Premier League, but very few of them. And it's because when you break that press, you're always up against one or two centre-backs and you can just get away from them. I think all the criticism of Otamendi is a little bit harsh, given that it's like, if he did prevent a goal or prevent a kind of really high quality chance in those positions, we'd say that's great defending. So if he doesn't do that, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad defending. Like the absence of brilliant defending is not the same as bad defending.
But I would say
it's an impossible task.
I would say
but it's an impossible task. Like eventually, anyone's going to make those mistakes.
But that's been the case
and
at Manchester.
Had that when Laporte was inside as well.
Yeah, that's been the case at Manchester City. I'd say even further back than that. Than when Pellegrini was in charge. I remember Vincent Kompany saying something about the Michaelis, saying that's one of the hardest roles to play in football. The centre half who has to go and attack the ball next to the sitting centre half in an attack-minded side like that. And that's kind of proven to be the case with Otamendi, who is very capable of very good performances.
So last season,
and I will defend him on most occasions, but on that occasion, when you're being fronted up with Jimenez, who's not, he's not got a lot of natural pace. He's certainly not a natural dribbler. I think that could have been defended much better in that isolated scenario.
But the fact it was a 2-on-2, like at that stage of the game.
Yeah, but where's the right back from that side?
Yeah, exactly. Where's the left back? Where's the two defensive midfielders? I think it was Rodri who actually carried the ball through midfield and got caught in midfield. I can't remember if that was for the first or the second, and then that led to the counter.
Yeah, the issue starts clearly much earlier than like when you've got a 2-on-2. Like there's obviously a problem that happens before that, and like Cancelo was obviously brought in to be a more attacking fullback. Like I mean, when he went to the right, he did look a lot better in the second half. But I don't know if the fullbacks are being asked to do the same thing this season to tuck into midfield. It's entirely possible that Pep thought with Rodri we won't necessarily need to do that. But the attack is still great. The attack could stand to lose kind of a fifth of its potency if it means just shoring up these defensive issues. And I think that Pep will probably try and find a way to balance those things out, because right now they're still the amazing attacking side they always were. They're still picking up huge chances against everybody, but you can just get at their heart far too easily, and I think he needs to find a way just to balance those issues.
But just taking it back to Foden, I was listening to Pep's press conferences. Obviously, he's bigged him up a number of times as the most talented player, as he says.
About 8 most in there, I think.
Yeah, as he says all the time. But I thought more interestingly, I think it was last week, his press conference, where he was talking about apologising to Phil Foden. He was like, I have to say sorry to him before and after every game that he's not starting, because he should be getting game time. And then he listed the players that were in front of him in his role. So in that sort of attacking midfield role, and he said that David Silva's ahead of him, Bernardo Silva's ahead of him, and he said Gundogan's ahead of him. So even if David Silva's to drop out, I don't necessarily feel like Foden's going to be naturally into that position.
But with Fernandinho at centre half, Gundogan's not going to occupy like another midfield position. I'm trying to articulate this, but yeah, if Silva drops out, Gundogan's already in the team, isn't he?
Yeah, you hope so.
But when a centre half returns, yes, he might fall one more down.
Yeah,
down
and
the list.
do any of us realistically think that Manchester City, upon losing David Silva, are not going to sign another attacking midfielder? I absolutely think they will.
Some of the names you listed though are a bit more tactically versatile than Foden at the minute as well, aren't they? So you might have Gundogan playing a more defensive position again. You know, if Fernandinho's future is at centre half. Bernardo Silva can play out wide, can't he? Although Mahrez has had a fantastic start to the season, been one of the funnest players to watch this campaign. And he's got a really good relationship with Kevin De Bruyne, hasn't he? Where Mahrez would just progress the ball, lay it back to De Bruyne, De Bruyne whips it in. So with Mahrez coming back into the side, yes, it doesn't feel like a space is necessarily opening up.
Yeah, and I'm just convinced that they'll sign £80 million attacking midfielder next summer when David Silva leaves.
Who?
I think they're much more likely to go for a centre back next, because they actually do.
I think
they should have bought a centre back in the summer, right? But I mean, there was talk they were going to go for somebody like Skriniar. Skriniar would be quite interesting, because obviously like he can cover a lot of ground as a centre back, but he's also played defensive midfield for his country, and so then you get a little bit of both things that you need. You have some midfield presence because he could potentially step out and work alongside Rodri. But basically, I think Rodri is a really, really good defensive midfielder who is not Fernandinho. And I think that they're still working out how the side needs to subtly change in order for Rodri to be able to fulfill that role on his own, because it is one of the toughest teams to play defensive midfield in. It's like you in the middle of a park and a bunch of guys ahead of you. And their defensive distance has gone up every season under Pep. So this is the distance from their goal that they defend. Yeah. So they get further and further away, and this season they're further away than ever. And it just feels like when you defend higher and higher up the pitch, and then maybe some of your centre-backs are injured, and instead of having Stones and Laporte, you've got a 33-year-old Otamendi and a 34-year-old Fernandinho. Maybe you just don't have the pace to recover anymore.
How much does that improve that defensive solidity just when their first choice centre-half pairing returns? Are we kind of making a mountain out of a molehill at the moment?
No, it was still bad. They had these defensive issues before Laporte got injured this season. Like they've looked ropier defensively this season than pretty much at any point under Pep. And,
But they are still conceding the third fewest shots, aren't they, behind Liverpool and Leicester City?
No, I think they're conceding the fewest shots.
Or is it the fewest shots? Maybe I think it is around actually 6.
Yeah,
it might be
really
City, Leicester, Liverpool. So I think they're still conceding around 6 shots per 90. So there's a very fine line between, I feel with City in particular, panic stations and business as usual.
So given how ropey they are in the midfield zone, basically Foden should probably get a shot right now. Like, I remember that game where he scored against Spurs, when they won 1-0, and everyone went on and on and on about the goal afterwards. And I just thought, what was actually more interesting in that game is I think he made 4 tackles and interceptions and completed a couple of dribbles. Because that, to me, looked much more like a Pep Guardiola midfielder than, he's going to be a great goal scorer. Like, who gives a shit? Like, in that team, he's obviously not going to be, like, the goal-scoring threat. But what he can be is a bit of a hybrid player who can help everybody out.
Okay, so if we're talking about attacking midfielders, what about Mesut Ozil?
Yeah, well, I mean,
feels like a player that is naturally in this list.
Well, he's one of the few. There are lots of players we could put on this list who are guys who are like, I like that guy, maybe he should play more. But Mesut Ozil is one of those few players who I'm like, he's still a world-class creator, and he's just sitting on the bench doing nothing. On the other hand, I can understand why in this Arsenal team he's not necessarily going to play, because your forwards don't really defend very much. Like Aubameyang will press a bit, but that's kind of it. Like Lacazette works hard.
Pepe doesn't do anything.
Pepe doesn't do anything defensively, and you just can't carry that many people. Like, especially when you've got then Xhaka playing in midfield. Like, it's possible once Tierney comes back and Bellerin comes back that they'll do more pressing from fullback. But to me, I completely understand why somebody has to drop out, but you can only imagine how fun it would be to see Mesut Ozil play behind those forwards, because up until Emery's first season, he'd consistently created over 3.5 key passes a game, which is the very, very top of Europe. Like there have been maybe 3 or 4 players who do that. He had over 4 in his best season, which was in a season where he had Giroud in front of him, and he was still creating huge quality chances. Even last season, it went down to like 2.5, and he was playing out of position in a ropey team. Like, that's still pretty damn good.
How are Arsenal able to stomach that wage? Like, there's been consistent chat, hasn't there, over the years about Arsenal like struggling to pay the big wages. They give Mesut the big wage, what is it, 300, 350, something like that a month, which is a really big chunk. That'd be a big chunk for like a Man United or a Man City or a Chelsea. Yeah. But for Arsenal, that feels astronomical compared to some of your other wages. Probably nearly double Aubameyang, I imagine. He's probably on like 180, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
So how the hell are Arsenal able to stomach that and not sell him?
Well, because they don't have a buyer for him currently. Like, to be fair, a lot of wages opened up in the summer. Like, they brought a bunch of guys in, but a lot of them are young, so they won't be on huge wages. And Czech left, who was on decent wages. Welbeck, Ramsey, all these guys were out the door. Monreal went. Like, these guys were all on pretty decent money because they're quite senior. So I think paying for it is not the issue, but they can't really move them on. And I just think that I can't really see anybody taking them off their hands. And so to me, it feels like I kind of hope Ozil outlasts Emery, because like there's no particular reason for Ozil not to be able to be an elite creator when he's older. Like, he's still reasonably athletic and he was never terribly fast. Like, but he's got a decent burst through the midfield and he works hard. And like, I just think that if you were to get in like an attacking coach next summer, I could absolutely imagine them being like, obviously we're going to play Mesut Ozil and we're going to find a way to press around him.
I'm a huge fan, but I would just move on from him now. I wouldn't even.
But how?
Who buys him though? There's nobody buys him.
Not in terms of, absolutely right. Who is going to want to pick up a player approaching 31 with his skill set on those wages? Maybe a Milan side. Certainly not a Conte Milan side. So if someone goes to AC that's sympathetic towards his cause, is it Pioli they've hired? Who at one point used to manage Inter Milan and Fiorentina. I'm not sure if he's the sort of manager that would pick him up. You're going to be massively short on suitors. But I think if he blocks the progress, you'd have to change the formation with him coming back in, wouldn't you? Like, to a 4-2-3-1 from this 4-3-3 that Emery keeps playing.
Let's get away from them 3 DMs.
Well, he's played a diamond as well, though. Like, I mean, if you play three DMs, you can play a diamond.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't want it to block the progress of, if you're changing formation, of Willock, of Saka. I don't know about Reece Nelson. I think Reece Nelson's got to have a really big year to establish himself as a player who can make it in the top 6, because he did fine in the Bundesliga last campaign. I mean, stats are thrown off a little bit by the minutes and the goals and assists he produced in his first 6 games. But I wouldn't want trying to figure out a way to bring Mesut Ozil back into the side to hamper the progress of the youth. And I don't know about him outlasting Emery, because surely then that kind of just perpetuates the problem, doesn't it? That you're back to not having an identity, a system. You've got a manager who's coming in and you're almost starting from scratch, and you're wondering where Mesut Ozil fits into the side. Does he get into the side if Allegri comes in? Like, what high quality manager?
I don't think we'll hire Allegri.
What high quality I suppose if an attack-minded manager like Tuchel comes in, maybe.
Yeah, I think he probably would have at least a role. Like, I mean, the thing is, he isn't playing really at all. Like, even in the matches that he'd be really well suited to, when like a small club's going to come up and defensively shell at the Emirates. Like, I mean,
he's got less minutes than Mkhitaryan. Mkhitaryan's gone.
Yeah,
in the league. Yeah, which is damning.
But it's like, but I think it's just an Emery issue. Like, Emery just doesn't like him. Like, Emery thinks he's not going to do what he wants him to do.
He doesn't try hard in training, does it?
The fact he's willing to play Torreira in a more advanced role.
Yeah, but that I think is just like him being an idiot. Like, he wants to play central midfielders in that attacking role in the same way he kind of did that at Sevilla as well. It's just so happened that the central midfielder he played in an attacking role happened to be Ever Banega, who was kind of great at everything. Like, but he, I don't know. I don't think we have an identity now. So when you say like, oh, okay, well, if we get a new manager in, like, it perpetuates the problem. Like, the problem is perpetual. Like, there's no way out of it until his contract ends. We have to deal with it. And I think like we don't have an identity now. So a new coach is already going to have to deal with that issue anyway. Like Ozil's not really a factor there. Like that's going to be an issue regardless of whether Ozil's there or not.
Yeah.
But given that Ozil is going to be there, I think that probably for the next coach, you'd want to say, are you just going to like decide that players are useless and leave them on the bench? Because clearly no manager in the world would think that Mesut Ozil was useless.
No.
So it just seems strange to be like, we can't get at least some minutes out of this asset.
Yeah, certainly in the cup competitions.
But not even that. Like, how can he not be on the bench? Like, as at least an option. When you're 2-0 down, you look to your bench, you want Mesut Ozil there as the ability to come on, change the game and create chances for your forward line if you're playing 3D.
There's been 7 games in the Premier League this campaign where he's not even made the matchday squad, which intimates it's something personal. And I agree that Arsenal haven't achieved an identity yet, but at least a bit of consistency is starting to form in the front three, in some promising youth. And I just think throwing him back into that equation, him outlasting the management, I just think that hampers any potential Arsenal have of improving. And at the minute, you are improving at a extremely slow rate.
But I
feel like it's maybe getting there.
Why
do you actually believe that Emery's going to be there next season?
Yeah.
I don't.
Not unless we end up. If we finish 4th and get to like a Europa League final, maybe. But I just can't really see it.
I think top 4 probably gets him another year.
I think if that faith was there, they'd have given him another year extension. To like, if they're going to make that decision based on exactly where he finishes this season, like, there's no faith in a long-term vision under it.
But also, they've given him the faith to spend X amount of money in the summer, so that kind of counterbalances the.
Well, he didn't spend it though, did he? Like they spent it for him. Like it's not like they said, "Here's some money for you to spend on who you want." They were like, "This is how we're going to build the squad, and you're going to deal with the squad we build."
The transfers didn't necessarily look like you need to achieve instant success with the money we spend. Like we're buying players who are going to be maybe that would serve well under another manager. But if they're buying better. If they're buying people like Kieran Tierney who aren't going to make an appearance until 2 months into the season, then that would suggest there is a certain degree of patience when it comes to Emery and getting the results.
Or there's underlying philosophy that's being built by the sporting director and behind the scenes board that doesn't really matter who the coach is.
But you could equally argue, we're paying full whack for a 24-year-old in Pepe, and we're also getting Ceballos on loan, which will cost us a couple mil. So those are you could argue those are much more like short to medium term moves than say a long term move for Tierney. Like I see where you're coming from.
Pepe's quite long term, but
yeah, but he's also kind of like you expect him to deliver now. He's 24. We've paid 72 mil for him. He's not a project.
But it'd be more worrying if he was delivering right now and you still weren't getting the results right. Because if there's room to improve with Pepe, then it's not necessarily just Emery's fault. It's like the player has to adjust, so on and so forth. If Emery starts putting out the 11, your strongest 11, and you're still not getting the results, then I think patience is going to be very few and far between.
It depends what you mean, though. You could put out the strongest 11 and the tactics could still be bad. Like, there are games this season where he's picked an 11 and I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good 11, based on who's available. But you can still play badly with the best players on the pitch. We're 3 or 4 removes from us actually playing well because we haven't got our best 11 on the pitch. And our tactics are all over the place. It doesn't necessarily matter. If Pepe one of the reasons Pepe's probably not playing as well as we'd like is because our attack isn't very good. It just fundamentally isn't.
And he
great.
wants to play with someone like Bellerin, though, doesn't he?
He needs somebody, who's going to get past him on the flank.
So he's missing key components. And if those key components come back and his system doesn't start to click with everyone, then you're like, okay, you are on borrowed time.
But that's assuming that Emery actually identifies that issue. I think with Emery, it's just very clear that we're not particularly going anywhere. We can be all right. We could probably make top 4, and I am concerned that if we make top 4, he will get another year. But fundamentally, he hasn't really achieved anything with the side. When they gave him a short contract, I think it was purely because they were we don't want to end up having to deal with a huge payout. Like United did for Moyes. Say this is our guy, and then have to pay him off when we sack him. So in this case, they've given themselves a break, but I think that the backroom staff, the hierarchy, are actually pretty happy with Emery, and that's a concern to me because
he's a safe pair of hands.
Well, that's the thing though. They think he is, but he clearly isn't. I think they're all over the shop.
His ceiling is limited. I don't think he'd ever get higher than 3rd with Emery in charge. Do you think Arsenal would have a higher ceiling with Brendan Rodgers at the helm? Because I'm trying to think of other
certainly a higher
candidates.
ceiling, but also a lower floor. Like I
Okay.
think that with Brendan Rodgers, the attack would be much better under Brendan Rodgers. The defence would probably be equally bad because the personnel isn't really there, and Rodgers has often played a pretty wide open defence.
Defence has been great at City though this season.
Yeah, but the defence is like the personnel is unreal. Like I mean, he's got one of the best like ball winners in the league in Ndidi.
Yeah.
And he's got very good fullbacks as well. I mean, the centre backs, I think jury's out a little bit, but I think that's like he'd probably play Torreira, which would improve us. But I don't know. Under Brendan Rodgers, I also don't think we'd come higher than third. Like realistically, you're not going to come in the top 2 at the moment, and I don't think we'd come third under anyone really right now. And I really like him at Leicester. I don't know why he'd leave. Like it's a great time to be Leicester coach as well. So there are other coaches around that I think we take a look at. I think we'd probably look at the Bundesliga.
I think if I was Emery though, I would be a little bit worried. Like, why are they not giving me this deal? Why are they not extending the contract? There's no faith there. There's literally no faith.
But this is the good thing about Edu coming in, right? Because I think before that they were talking about, okay, we've got to get a sporting director in who knows Emery, and we've got to make sure everybody knows and likes Emery. And it sounded like they were building for the future. And now the good thing about Edu coming in is that Edu probably is like a bit more dispassionate about it because he wasn't involved in the hiring process. So I would absolutely let him stew to the end of the season and be like, I'm sure he'll start whining at some point in press conferences about how he wants a new contract. But I would let him sit there to the end of the season and be like, clearly success has to be based on where you end up. And if you end up third, and if you end up like 5th, but you played amazing football over the back half of the season and really developed the young players and it was great, maybe you deserve a chance. If you end up like third, but it was absolutely rancid football and you lucked into it by being like the tallest dwarf, then like, no, we're not giving you a new
I really
contract.
agree. Like, the results, particularly for Arsenal at the moment, who are trying to progress the philosophy or at least establish one, the results are overrated. It should be. The focus should be on performance.
Yeah.
However,
Though we should get top 4 this season.
Yeah. However, I think that's a reasonable stance by the club. You've spent this amount of money. We know you're not going to get your first XI out until the end of October. We'll wait until the end of the season and we'll pick things up from there. I don't think Emery can take great umbrage to that.
Yeah.
But I also think he maybe gets a little bit of a hard time. And I mean, I unpicked him a little bit on Premier League Explained. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, people go, there's no sporting director there. You know, he's trying to straddle both positions. He's trying to execute a vision and be pragmatic on the pitch as well and drag United through this tough period. And Edu's just come in, and sure, we don't know what level of support he's providing or if he's helping execute that vision for Emery or whatever. But I think he's doing all right. And maybe Arsenal fans need to think about who would necessarily come in and do a better job in this period that is available. And I think the shortlist is very, very short.
I think it's quite long. But I think partially it's based on everyone thinking we had like an A+ summer when really we probably had like a B- summer. So you can see that as well. Fans were like, this is a great transfer window. We're going to be great this season. And they were like, oh, we're actually probably slightly worse than we were at the start of last season. Amazing.
Who'd be your top 3 then? Like managers that you think will be available next summer?
Next summer, well, permanent guys. I mean, I think you could probably get Marco Rose out of Gladbach next summer. You could definitely, I'm almost certain that Tuchel will be available. Like, those would be good guys. I wouldn't go for Allegri first of all, but obviously Allegri is a superior manager to Emery. Like, I don't think we'd have any arguments about that.
Sure.
But it's also about like fit for the squad. Like, I think you go and interview whoever you can. Like, and see. I don't think Nagelsmann's going to leave next summer, but like, you absolutely go and try and court those guys. For a time down the road. So
I guess that's where you have to have
Erik Ten Hag as well.
Yeah,
I think
have to have continuity, don't you, at sporting director level to go and court those guys.
Yeah,
like, and build the squad towards those guys, which is not the case.
The squad looks much more like I think somebody like Ten Hag or Marco Rose would actually fit it kind of well. And I think that going on how they've recruited for the squad, it feels like those are the managers they might look at a little bit more. But
an element of risk with all those guys, isn't there? Like Marco Rose, but Thomas Tuchel will be the one.
But isn't that the argument with Rodgers as well? Like, Rodgers is kind of a risk. Like, Rodgers is like, he's probably going to play with that squad. He'd probably play a really high attacking possession kind of style and say, you know what, like, we are going to get scored against, but we're going to outscore people. And like, you need somebody to take a risk sometimes if the squad demands that you take risks. And the squad right now, it's not a kind of defending counter side because they're not good enough at defending. So you need someone who's going to at least figure out what the sensible risk is.
Yeah,
because we're running a risk now by playing boring football.
Yeah, when I say element of risk, obviously you want to gamble on a. There's only Allegri has pedigree there. Like Unai Emery certainly earned his stripes more so than a Marco Rosa if he comes in. But we like the football Rosa plays. Gladbach flying high at the start of this season. So sure, I see where you're coming from. But it's are they any better equipped to do? Would they do a significantly better job? I think only Allegri would establish that.
But it does come down to
winning
Arsenal
mentality
fans
more so.
having to watch rubbish football.
Winning
Every week.
mentality is bullshit, man.
It does kind of come down to Arsenal fans having to watch rubbish football every week.
Yeah, but that doesn't help, does it?
Like
when the
that's
results
what it
are
always
bad.
boils down to is that you can put up with semi-average results if the football's good, but it's boring under Emery.
Well, and also that the board talked this up when they hired Emery. Like they said, we wanted somebody who played attacking football, who had a track record of developing youth, who did all this stuff. You're like, well, why the did you hire Unai Emery then? Like, who's not any of those things? Like, Unai Emery has never been known as an attacking coach, ever. Like, if you were going to get a boring coach, you should have got Conte. Like, at least he'd have been great. And actually, you know what? Like, winning is not that boring to watch necessarily. But it was strange to say we want to honour Arsene Wenger's like legacy at this club by getting in somebody who's going to attack and develop young players. And then you got somebody in who
wasn't as good at doing it as him.
Yeah, well, who's not. Very few people are as good at doing it as him, but like who just, I don't know, seems incapable of building any sort of attack.
Who plays good football and doesn't get the results then? Like this, I think that's a little bit of a fallacy. That's a little bit of a fallacy as well.
Who plays football? But
I mean, Wenger's still winning trophies, isn't he? In his final 2 or 3 seasons.
Sure, but I mean, the FA Cup. Yeah, I mean, Wenger did. Genesio did to some extent, I suppose. Like Quique Setien did. Like there are guys
half a season. Pablo Machine half a season. At
Montella. Like, well, I think Machine probably deserved longer than that, but Pablo Machine would be quite an interesting hire. Like, I mean, Schmidt obviously played great football. Like Tuchel, you could argue, like only didn't really win much with Dortmund, but Dortmund played the best football in Germany when he was there. So I mean,
Tuchel the only one out of those that list that's gone on to manage a big club and win silverware.
But that's the thing. Like, I mean, you're not responsible for who hires these people. Like, sometimes you have to just hire the guy who's the best for the job. Like, I think if we get into this idea of like, right, we have to hire guys who've got silverware, then like Pochettino never gets hired. Like, it's just, I think Arsenal need to be thinking beyond that now and saying, okay, who's the best young coach? Like, would you hire Nagelsmann now? Of course you would.
Yeah.
Like, Nagelsmann you'd hire over almost anybody else, and he's got no track record
Again,
of
like,
anything.
results are overrated. Trophies can be overrated in that sense, and you'd never boil down an argument to, oh well, he's won this trophy and he hasn't. That makes him a failure. But I do think it's quite easy to suck it into appointing someone who's been pleasing on the eye for 6 months and then dismissing kind of Unai Emery's trophy-laden past, I guess, or you're forgetting about when he did it with Sevilla.
Well,
but
you look beyond 6 months. You have to look under the hood. Like, I mean, and people like Machine have done it for like more than 6 months, and so is like Erik ten Hag. Like, those guys have done it for quite a long time.
If they have another season in the Champions League like they did last season, there'll be a lot of suitors for him, won't there? Barcelona being one.
Yeah, I mean, and though I think they've been a little bit lucky so far, but like you look at how they play football, and I don't know. I think there's actually going to be a lot of managerial movement next summer. So I just think maybe we'll see some of these players who are out in the cold now kind of come back into it. Like, maybe you will see, like, if a different coach came in, maybe like Lucas Moura would be more important.
That's the one I was going to say to answer this question, because the fact that Lucas Moura doesn't start in this Tottenham team right now is an absolute shambles.
He was so good when he came on against Brighton.
Absolute shambles. Every time I sit in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, every fan there is like, get Lucas on. I don't understand Poch's methodology behind not playing Lucas Moura. 3 starts he's had this season, and whilst Harry Kane struggles, Lamela has probably looked a little bit better this season actually, and Son has been a bit hit and miss this season, but is effective as ever.
And he's been moved around.
Lucas Moura, every time he's come on in this season, has been their best forward. He's phenomenal. I can't fathom what he has to do to get a start in this team over an Eric Lamela or over a Heung-min Son, or even over a Harry Kane. I don't understand the rationale behind not playing him when results are this tragic for Poch. I think they've lost 7 of their last 13 games. They can't score goals. Lucas Moura immediately has impact in terms of creating chances. I think this season he's averaged over 4 shots across the minutes he's played.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It does help when you come on in the second half though, and you're very fast and you're against tired defenders.
But then to have that from the start.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, he probably would not look quite so effective if you play from this. Like, if you come on in the second half
Yeah.
and you are a really fast, dynamic player, and you're playing against tired players, then it is a little bit easier for you.
For
to
sure,
get
and I think
back.
he's got three goal contributions in his 3 starts. But like, even if that dropped to 1 or 2, it's more than anybody else in that.
No,
front
I
line.
agree. You give him a shot.
I mean, last season's minutes are probably a better. That data set is probably a better representation of his numbers. You know, what his numbers would be if he started, and he was still getting 2 shots, 2 dribbles, which is still very handy for a wide player. And like you said, he's no more deserving of a start than
like,
Son at this point.
I guess like for Lucas Moura, some things like are hard to put into statistical analysis. Like the impetus he adds to their attack every time he comes on is just unbelievable. And like there probably is a statistic out there that shows how much they change when he's on the pitch. I haven't got it in front of me, but the fact that he has only got 3 starts this season and Tottenham are 15th in the league for expected goals is what's he done wrong behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Mix it up.
It does feel like there are too many people at Spurs who are just like guaranteed a start regardless of how they play.
100%.
Like Winks is always going to play, like Kane is always going to play, like and you can see the justification for some of those guys, but at the same time you think if you have too many people who are guaranteed their place, then you're always kind of going to play the same way.
And it obviously needs to change. Like there's things that are clearly going wrong behind the scenes at Tottenham, whatever they are, whether it's players coming down and running their contract down. There's obviously massive issues in the defence, which is just all over the place, given that the 2 centre-backs are out of contract in the summer. They sold their starting right back in the summer, didn't replace him. The left back they tried to sell to Watford in the summer, didn't really replace him. Ben Davies is now categorised as way down the list by kind of the feeling at Tottenham Hotspur fans. Then you look in the midfield, and Ndombele started pretty well, but Lo Celso, which now seems like a short-term strategy of loan, hasn't really worked, given that he's been out for, a cumulative 12 weeks coming up November. So it feels like behind the scenes, it's an absolute mess. And Lucas Moura, he must have contributed to it in some way, because I see that as the only reason that he doesn't get game time, because when he's on the pitch, he's probably their best player.
There's correlations to maybe Phil Foden in that, because none of their, well, I mean, their attack.
But at least Phil Foden is behind one of the best attacks in the league.
Attack is still fine.
Tottenham's attack has fallen off a cliff, and he still can't get a game.
And there's no right winger. Like
There's
really,
no
that's
right
like
winger.
Lamella who comes into the middle much more.
There's no right winger, and Lamella, when he comes on, he doesn't start every game either. When he comes on, like very clearly a better presser than most of that front line.
Yeah.
But Lucas Moura is way more of an attacking threat than Eric Lamella. I don't understand what Christian Eriksen's offering to that team right now. I think he's regressed massively this season as a footballer, and whether that's because of the contractual stuff that's happened off the pitch or not, whether or not he just doesn't want to play for Tottenham remains to be seen. But I think if you speak to any Tottenham fan, they'll be like, Christian Eriksen should not be starting for us. And if that's the case, then Lucas Moura has to be getting more minutes than he's getting right now. So for me, the person who deserves more game time is definitely Lucas Moura, ahead of Foden and Mesut Ozil.
Yeah.
Because I think at least Foden's got a good attack, and Ozil's kind of fallen off a bit of a cliff with Arsenal.
He's a bit of a liability.
Arsenal's hierarchy, whereas Lucas Moura is apparently still like in with the team, isn't he? And they can't score a goal, they can't get any assists, and Lucas Moura still sat on the bench come 60 minutes.
When they're playing Son and Kane as a front two, and if you're going to play with a front two, you kind of need really wide fullbacks, and they don't have that either. So like, where is the width in that team?
And it's an accusation Tottenham fans level at Poch a lot, is that he's terrible at substitutions. Like, always leaves it too late in the game, doesn't bring the right players on at the right times, and the fact that Lucas Moura comes on quite late often, sort of 70th minute onwards, up towards the 80th minute, it's not really enough time to have an impact. It's the sort of, it's the minutes that make your numbers look incredible, like this, 4 shots per 90. But it's also, if you're Lucas Moura, I'd be going, I'm 27, like, now's my time. I'm the best player in this attack at the moment.
What happened to him at PSG is now happening to him at Tottenham, in that he had a promising season, put up promising numbers, 10 plus goals, not hugely decisive, but his career's just kind of slowly regressing, and that must be playing on his mind. Like, this has happened to me before. I've become less and less important and influential. I just want to be, the main guy.
And that's probably another thing that's going wrong behind the scenes. Like, Lucas Moura probably thinks he should be starting, and is like, well, if I'm not going to start, I'm going to leave. Everybody else is leaving. Vertonghen's going, Eriksen's going, Alderweireld's going. They tried to get rid of Rose. I want that as well. I'm not getting any game time. Harry Kane signed a 6-year contract last summer. He's going nowhere.
And it's not like you're being paid so much like Ozil, where Ozil could be like, well, I'm earning 350k a week, why would I leave?
He's probably earning the least of any of that front line, given that
probably
Dele
earning
Alli
nothing.
signed a new contract, didn't he? Heung-min Son signed a new contract. Harry Kane signed a 6-year deal. They're probably all the top earners in that forward line. Christian Eriksen's leaving, and Lucas Moura's probably going, well, I want parity with these top earners, or I'm leaving because I'm not getting any game time.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, that just adds to the pressure on it all. But either way, who do you think, to take it back to the original question, is wasting away on the bench at their current club? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Right, moving on very quickly to quickfire questions, because that answer was a long one. We're going straight in with Folds Ashley. Who should Man City sign in January in order to catch Liverpool? Obviously, a centre-back. Any options standing out? You mentioned Skriniar earlier.
Yeah,
Think they can get him in January though? Off of Conte?
Doubt it. Like given the way they're pushing for the title, but I also think though that Pep will solve a lot of their issues just with like formation changes and style changes.
Okay.
But they should probably be thinking about another central midfielder in the long term.
Central midfield, not centre back.
Well, I'd go and get both ideally, but like I think you probably have to wait till the summer for a centre back, whereas you might be able to get a central midfielder a little bit earlier. I don't know who I'd go for really though.
Yeah.
You want somebody with defensive capability, like Ndombele would have been great for them. Lo Celso would have been great for them.
Yeah, although Lo Celso's been injured.
Sure, but maybe you wouldn't have got
What
injured.
about centre back Nathan Ake? Name gets raised a lot.
Okay.
Are we having Nathan Ake
It's
as
been
a
touted
potential
for a move
level
to a
at
top club,
that
hasn't it?
level?
For like
come on.
40 million.
He's really
I don't
underpriced.
actually think Manchester City, just put a dampener on this question, are going to spend any money in January. I think Pep's already said that financial fair play dictates that we're not going to be able to spend any dosh. Which, to flip this question on its head, if you're Liverpool, puts you in a decent position if you're willing to spend 15, 20 million on a backup left back. Obviously, a bit of a gaping hole in their side. You know, should Robertson get injured and Milner have to drop back? Milner's been starting in central midfield on occasion, so that might be some detriment in midfield as well if he has to move back. I actually thought someone like Junior Firpo would have been a really smart signing for them. Obviously, he went to Barcelona from Real Betis, a left back who can play all the way up that left hand side and is similar to Robertson. Is pretty useful in front of goal. So yeah, if I'm Liverpool, I'm actually looking at this winter window like, okay, a chance to solidify our position at the top of the table. We've let this slip before. Let's bring in some backup.
Yeah, so you're saying Man City won't spend any money?
And Liverpool should get a left back or a right back. Although Joe Gomez can cover right back, can't he? But I think he should be probably covering Matip at centre back.
Do you think they'll spend any, or are you going to say no
Liverpool?
money? No, Man City.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not really sure who's going to be available that they like, but it really depends how far they are behind and how they're looking in the Champions League. I genuinely don't know. But if Pep says that they're not going to, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. As for Liverpool, I think they're going to have trouble because like it's really hard to recruit guys knowing they're going to be backup for a player who's not old. Like that is a really difficult way to recruit players.
Good time to bring someone in for the next season though, because I feel like it takes 6 months at Liverpool to actually understand the system. So if you're a player, I don't think there's a huge amount of pressure to contribute immediately if Liverpool bring you in January.
I think Man City will definitely sign a centre back in January. Just like I think they're way too short. I think Pep is full of hot air in
But
that
won't
regard.
Laporte and won't Stones be kind of back by then?
Stones will be.
Laporte will be back more like February time, won't he?
Right, okay.
I just think that he should have signed one in the summer, and he's probably realising his mistake now, post-company. The next one was sent in by Look at This Net 3. Who do you think will get relegated based on the first 8 match days? Very tough.
We did this for a season preview, didn't we? Has anyone's opinion changed?
I can't remember what I said,
Yeah,
to be honest.
fair. A lot of content.
Definitely said
all the
Villa.
But it looks
Can't
like
really see
Watford
any
are in a bit of trouble.
I don't think anyone picked Watford out of us three.
No.
I think we all said they were like in the conversation. I think we all definitely said Newcastle. I think.
Yeah.
I definitely
Still in
said
there for
Villa,
me.
and I still think Newcastle and Villa probably.
And
Then-
Norwich.
I think, I was looking at
Then
Norwich's
you're looking at
results.
Norwich, Watford.
Oh wow! And
Yeah.
that injury record is getting worse by the day. They are dropping like flies. I think another 2 have pulled out of the international break with injury as well. So if they don't get them that injury situation sorted quickly, they could be a long way off safety at
It's
Christmas.
still really hard to believe that Sheffield pull this off. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard to
I know what
believe
you
that
mean.
Sheffield get through this season. Like because you do see games. I keep seeing games where they had one shot on target and they drew 2-2.
Yeah.
It's like, how's that? They've
Against-
done it again and again.
Against Everton away from home, I think they put up 2 shots on target and scored 2 goals. I mean, the goalkeeper, Henderson, apart from that mistake against Liverpool, has been very, very good. And they have conceded 7 goals, which is the joint second best so far this season. And not had an easy opening by any means. They've already played Chelsea, they've already played Leicester. Any other big sides? Liverpool, Jesus, of course, just said that. So they could be the one that surprises, and maybe Newcastle. You know, there's a bit of feel-good factor going around Newcastle after that victory against United, but I feel like, Jesus, they are still so firmly in it, aren't they?
Yeah,
second
100%.
victory at that.
Let's finish with a personal question then, because we've been rambling on today. From He-Man United, is Joker the best film of the year so far? I haven't seen it. Pat hasn't seen it. You've seen it. What's your opinion?
Best? Okay, I think that's a much more reasonable question than is it the best film ever, and a lot of people have kind of been purporting it as that. It's probably the best individual performance I've seen. Like, I think his performance
Ever?
Well, certainly this year. I wouldn't say ever in terms of
That's quite strong.
In terms of comic book characters, probably the best individual performance in a comic book series, maybe.
Better than Heath Ledger.
Ledger's is just he was different, wasn't he? It was a bit more dangerous. This is probably more varied than Heath Ledger's. You know, Heath Ledger had like less scope. His character's a bit more focused on being hellbent, whereas they're trying to explain why he is like he is in this. So it's a little bit more, you know, there's a bit more more facets to play with, I guess. But is anyone surprised? Joaquin Phoenix is a unbelievable actor. You know, Walk the Line, You Were Never Really Here, like.
Never seen it.
All brilliant films.
Has he done it?
Is it the best film of the year? I'd say yes. I've enjoyed it the most. I woke up thinking about it, which I've not done for a little while. And he probably deserves a bit of an Oscar.
Did you watch? Did you watch Hobbs vs Shaw?
8 or 9 minute standing ovations, like.
Did you do that? That didn't happen in your cinema.
No, so like they're sycophantic, aren't they? That's such an American thing. I would never, no matter how
They do
good,
it at Cannes as
no matter
well.
how good a performance is, I will never clap someone for 8 minutes, even if I think it's the best film ever.
Especially if they're not there.
Did you watch Hobbs vs Shaw?
Did I watch what? Sorry?
Hobbs and Shaw at the start of the year.
Are we going from the Joker to Hobbs and Shaw? What's going on?
Yeah. Did you watch it at the start of the year?
Equally seminal performances.
Yeah. There you go.
I did see that Idris Elba slid a motorbike underneath a lorry though, so
He is does play a kind of robot though. So
I saw the trailer where he calls himself like Black Superman or something, and I was like, this is probably going to be the best film ever.
Yeah, and it's probably better than the Joker, but I haven't seen the Joker, so hard to make that judgment. Either way, thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you are new to Sunday Vibes, you can submit your questions on Twitter or in the comments below, and we'll try and answer the best ones next week. Football Social today?
Yep.
What is it? No,
it's
Football
not
Social, it's
international break. Sorry, next Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday, which I believe is Manchester United versus Liverpool.
Yes.
Which is going to be a barrel of laughs for me. Anything else to plug? PL Explain this week?
PL explained on Leicester's credentials as a top 4 club. So yeah, go and check that out. Any podcasts?
Yeah, the Game's Gone Mad will be out by the time that you're watching this, whereas the Sunday Vibes Extra Time will return next week.
Yes. Thank you very much for watching. Au revoir.